just going to wait a couple more minutes to make sure that we give everybody a chance to get on, and we will start just in about probably 60 seconds or so or less.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Okay, we're going to get started. We know how valuable everybody's time is, and we have a full program for you. So we're going to get started. My name is Mel Horan. I'm Vice President of Sales of the Northbridge companies. And on behalf of Northbridge, I wanted to welcome you all to this great program. I also wanted to thank Alexandra Morelli from the Rhode Island Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program at the University of Rhode Island for their support and partnership. This would not be happening without them. And of course, to our very own Kelly McCarthy, who will lead you through the next hour. And in my 30 plus years of senior living, I have never worked with a professional who is so passionate, so knowledgeable, and really so real the way Kelly approaches everything when it comes to seniors, dementia, and the lives of our residents. But this is a type of person and professional Northbridge attracts and hires. We are in the people business, and our owners, Wendy Nowakunski and Jim Coughlin, take that very seriously and put our people first, as we should. Our people being our residents, their families, and our associates. Our motto, live well and love life, is all about the quality of one's day, bringing joy, independence, satisfaction, peace of mind, and support, not to mention fun and laughter. And Lord knows we all need that these days, fun and laughter. So without further ado, I want to welcome you again, and I want to introduce Alexandra Morelli. Allie?
Hi, welcome. I'm not sure how I can follow up with that, but good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start the presentation. I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items. So today's presentation is behaviors, the good, bad, and how to support creative interventions. Our presenter today is Kelly McCarthy. Kelly McCarthy has been in the senior health industry for over 25 years. She is the current Vice President of Resident Engagement and Memory Care Services at Northbridge Companies. She's also the author of Brass Ring Memoirs, encouraging stories using practical methodologies to help caregivers reach for their goals in Alzheimer's and dementia care. In 2018, Kelly's 8-hour Brass Ring Dementia Professional Education Program was approved as a nationally recognized dementia certification through the National Institute for Dementia Education. Again, this presentation is supported by the Rhode Island Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program at the University of Rhode Island in Care, New England. Next slide, please. Thank you. The presentation is being recorded and will be available along with other events in our geriatric education series. It'll be posted on our website at web.uri.edu/RIGEC, but it will also be distributed to anyone that had registered for this presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat feature on your screen and we'll answer these at the end of the presentation. Thank you. There are CEUs available for free today. All we ask is that you participate in the full webinar and complete the program evaluation at the end. If you are not a nurse or a social worker but would like a certificate of completion, you can also receive that by completing the program evaluation. And there's some information about that. I will follow up at the end of the presentation about CEU requirements. The Rhode Island Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program is pleased to support the use of basic principles of the Age-Friendly Healthcare System initiative led by the John A. Hartford Foundation and the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. The initiative is an evidence-based approach that focuses on the 4M framework of age-friendly care. The 4M framework aligns care to what matters to older adults and captures the essence of high-quality care in areas of mobility, medication, and mentation. We hope that the 4M framework provides a structure for integrating the essential elements of geriatric care into your work with older adults, and ask that you learn about each of the 4M for older adults in your care and incorporating this in your plans of care moving forward. And now to Kelly. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Allie. Okay, we're going to go right from the overview here. I got a lot of information today. I know that I typically like to have this interactive, of course, because we're all on mute. That means you still get to scream out loud the answer. Please use the chat bar. But again, I'm going to ask some questions and feel free to yell it out. You'll be right. How do you like that? I'm not going to be calling on anybody, but to make it engagement, make it a little more fun. We're going to have a little bit of interaction as much as we can in these days. So in the overview, we're going to talk about person-centered focus. I know we all know a lot about that, but what makes up a valued team, and why do we need a valued team? Why do we need a team for behaviors? We're also going to call it manifestation of need or distress, AKA behaviors. Introducing new people and places to a person with memory loss. We're going to talk about how to navigate through behaviors. Are we going to use just a pill, or are we going to really create a plan? So we're going to talk about how to do that. And at the end of the day, what is the person's brass ring? So as Allie had mentioned, I wrote a book called Brass Ring Memoirs, Encouraging Stories. I'm going to talk about brass ring. So again, a lot of you know person-centered care approach. It's about a person's current medical diagnosis, their surgeries, restrictions, their social, how they navigate their space, and how they communicate, their preferences. And I think that a lot of times we don't look at that enough. Preferences, meaning, do they have a special coffee cup they use every day? Or is it different? Is the teacup different? Pillows and the like. And so really kind of looking at somebody's routine. And then life story, the good, the bad, and of course, we say the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So let's go over these three little pictures here on the screen. So the first one is brass ring. So if you think about the brass ring, and so some of you know the story, and if you don't, please read the book, Brass Ring Memoirs, but it's about reaching for goals, right? It started when kids were young and they were in the merry-go-round and they would reach for their goals. So if you think about in caregivers terms, we all as caregivers have goals that we have to care for somebody with memory loss. And so our goals end up sometimes being task-oriented, right? Our goals of the day is ADL care, activities of daily living. Our goals are things that we do for the person. It's so important though to understand that the person with memory loss has goals too, and we can't lose sight of that. And so oftentimes when I talk about brass rings, I talk about the importance of understanding that you have them, the person you're caring for has them. There's times though, and oftentimes more so than not, we have to drop our brass ring and pick up theirs. All right, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. The other thing that you see here is an iceberg, and I know this analogy is used a lot about a person, 10% of who a person is. So what you see right now on the screen on me, 10% of who that person is, the color of their eyes, if they're wearing glasses, their hair, if they wear jewelry, all of that is on that surface. But when you're caring for somebody with memory loss, we need to know what's underneath, and that's 90% of the person, right? And so all of those things that, as I mentioned before, you know, the routines that they have, what kind of soap that they use, all of the things that create a habit are so important, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. And then, of course, my favorite chapter, which is chapter 4 in my book called Peacock Moments. And if you think about a peacock, oftentimes I'll ask questions about what is a peacock, how do they feel when you see them like this? And it's automatic that the audience will yell out pride, they'll yell out beauty, and they'll yell out confidence. And oftentimes people with memory loss are robbed of their pride. They're robbed of their beauty, and they're robbed of their confidence. And sometimes it's very innocent, but a lot of times it's the way we respond. You forgot again. Don't you remember? So it's the things that we say to people. And so our goal, and we talk about in Northbridge, our goal in creating Peacock Moments is to create pride, beauty, and confidence in the people that we care for each and every day. So again, just to kind of follow up on the person-centered, if you're working in case management and you're working with families at home, it's so important because a lot of times families feel like they're on an island and they don't feel like they have a team. And so regardless whether you're residential living, acute care, adult day, or home care, it's important to understand that the person does have resources. And it could be the first responders in that neighborhood, right? And support groups that the Alzheimer's Association has, family and family caregivers, the primary care physician and the specialist that that person has. Any caregivers that support, whether it be residential day, care providers, or day programs and the like. And then the other things that are so important is the home history, right? So what's under that person's iceberg? Their habits and their routines and rituals, their medical history. This is all so important and things that we really need to look at when we're caring for somebody within our care. So you think about benefits of a solid team. Well, of course, it's the obvious, the health and well-being of the person we're caring for, but how about yourself? And I think that, again, if you're working with families, oftentimes they feel alone. If you're working in residential living, you don't want one person to be the heavy lifter. We really need to make sure that we have a team, that we're open-minded to different viewpoints, that every person's viewpoint, really should be respected. I've been doing this for a long time, and I love the fact that, I work with a strong group of nurses, and they appreciate and respect the non-pharmacological approach to care. And I respect all of the information that they have medically for me with regards to a person's care too. So it's really just important to make sure that we're all open-minded to different things. Patient follow through with interventions. So here's my question. So chat bar blow up, or you guys yell it at the top of your lungs. How many days does it take for someone to make a break a habit? Think about COVID. How many days does it take to make a break a habit? How many of you had to walk out of the grocery store or get out of your car? You're walking to the grocery store, then you say an I can't even say it. You say a swear word, or you say something, and then you go back into your car and you grab your face mask. Well, that probably took about 21 days. It takes about 21 days for somebody with memory loss. Look at 9 in the chat bar. That looks good. So about 21 days it takes to make a break a habit. If you think about someone with memory loss, my next question is, how many days do you think it takes for somebody with memory impairment to make a break a habit? This isn't a trick question, and it's not uncommon, right? It's not that far off from what we have. So 21 days for us. For somebody with memory loss, it's about 35 days. And this is why you'll hear a lot of companies, in Northbridge in particular, that we are non-pharmacological approach to care. We don't go right for that pill, because we understand that habits can still be made or broken within 35 days, give or take a cognitive deficit. So let me give you an example for those of you, and I'm going to say residential care, but it could be anywhere. If you have somebody, we have people that come into our community and they live in the apartments they consider this home, and it takes a little while for them to get adjusted. We walk them and escort them to the dining room. A couple of months down the line, let's say 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line, you start seeing people, and we may cue them and say it's time to eat. And right away, they walk right into the dining room, and they most likely sit exactly where they've been sitting, right? Where we may have been escorting them for the last 35 days. So that's a habit. And so it's important for us to understand that our teams can create habits, and we can look at breaking habits or working with interventions to be able to support that. So just some great, some great information. So Sharon Roth McGuire wrote in the foreword in my book, and I just love this quote because it really kind of, again, is the beginning of my chapters on behaviors. And she said, I thank God for behaviors, because if we didn't have behaviors, we wouldn't know what the person's trying to tell us. They're not good or bad. And oftentimes, and I'll ask this question and you guys can yell it out. If the principal calls you today and says, hey, we need to talk to you about your child's behavior, what would you think? Right? So automatically the word behaviors has this negative connotation on it. But let me tell you something, I brush my teeth in the shower, and I'm probably going to do it at the age of 86. And if a caregiver doesn't understand that that's not a behavior that they have to work on, right, then there may be a problem. Because it's important to understand what is a behavior, right? They're habits, they can be habits, they can be good or bad. They just may be something that someone's done all their life. And it may not be socially acceptable in certain areas, and that's where we get into some challenges. So whose behavior can I change? right? So what's the answer is, and again, you can use a chat bar or yell it out, whose behavior can we change? Of course, the answer is, I can only change my behavior. And so is it a problem? Again, I brush my teeth in the shower. I've been doing it for years. And so is it a problem? If the frontline associate feels that it's a problem, then we have an issue. So it's important to know what is a problem and what isn't a problem. So the areas that I really focus on is the person causing harm to themselves or others? Is it unwanted sexual contact? Is the person impeding the functioning of the day, right? So they're catastrophic yelling, or they're doing something that causes us not to be able to provide for the other people that we're caring for. So again, just looking at that and making sure that, you know, those particular things are the ones that I always call kind of a red flag, and we kind of really want to support those right away. Oh my goodness. So I know I have a lot of nurses on here. Have you ever heard this? Do we have anything for this person? Do we have anything for this person? And oftentimes we've heard this because of maybe these things, wandering. 65% of people wander with agendas or without agendas with the disease, causing harm to themselves or others, exhaustive crying, hoarding, shopping, catastrophic reaction, so that blow up and we don't know why, but there may be something underlying, not protecting themselves, inappropriate sexual behavior, just to name a few. So oftentimes we go right for the pill. And if you think about it, we all have tool belts, right? So the physician has medication. So oftentimes if the nurses ask, hey, we have a behavior, do we have anything for this person? We give the phone, you know, we call the physician, and maybe we look at this and they prescribe a med. What's so important for us to understand, case managers, nurses, and the like, anyone who's on the call that works in senior living and memory care, is that you are the expert. Your frontline associates are the experts, as well as everyone else and part of the team. So the resources, and if you go back to that first slide of person-centered care with all those bubbles in there, knowing that a person brushes their teeth in the shower is very important. Knowing that they love Dove soap and they love how it smells and that's their go-to soap is important. Knowing that they don't use their, you know, they have a special coffee mug or a special Afghan is so important, because it creates that routine, and routine makes us feel like we belong. And that's important. And when we lose that, that's when behaviors can arise. So knowing and sharing and making sure your frontline associates know that they are experts is so important. So instead of a pill, think about what's causing the behavior. Is the task too complicated or demanding? Is the environment too noisy, or is it too boring? Does the person feel frightened? Are we trying to bend them, right, to get them into our reality? Is the person tired, hungry, in pain, or lonely, right? And I think this is such a great thing just to even post somewhere. So when you're having behaviors, if you have behaviors in any, you know, in a community, this is a nice thing to post somewhere with the, you know, where the associates see it, just to kind of really have them understand, hey, you know what, noise can make this person maybe be upset. Maybe we're asking them to do things that may be too complicated. So this is my favorite slide. I'm going to take a little time with this one, but I want you to know this is going to give you this as a resource. If you go on your search engine and you put in amygdala bookshelf, you will get this wonderful pamphlet about this slide, and print it out. And if you are one of the trainers or you support the training or education in your communities, this is so important for you to use, because it's a game changer. Let me explain why. So if you look at this bookshelf, this is a bookshelf of a healthy brain. On the left side, you've got the hippocampus that supports logic, fact, and reasoning. Then you've got on the right side, the amygdala, which controls or supports feelings and emotions. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see childhood is the bottom, teenage years, adulthood, middle, and then old age. Well, if you think about a brain, a healthy brain, yours and mine is about 3 pounds. And here it is, healthy brain bookshelves are full, all nice and full. Now here we are with the hippocampus with early stage memory loss, beginning stage memory loss. Look at a couple of bookshelves. There's a couple of books off the top where it says old age on the hippocampus. This is where somebody may start to become forgetful. And they say, what time is supper? Just give an example. What time is supper? What time is supper? So if they say it once, oftentimes they may repeat it often. And I bet you've heard this, and in my 25 years plus, I've heard this as well, where somebody may say, I told you already, it's 5 o'clock, right? Or they look at their watch and go, it's 5 o'clock, right? Or they might even say, you know what, forget it. I'll come get you. You're only gonna forget again. And I bet you I'm not the only one that has heard people say that. And so you think about it, look at the bookshelf on the amygdala side, feelings and emotions, all the books are there. So on the chat bar, what do you think this person feels when somebody says, you forgot again? I told you already, right? Books are still there. So I'll answer it, but I'm hoping that you're yelling it out. They're gonna feel frustrated. Yeah, they're gonna feel sad. They might feel embarrassed. They might be angry. Who the hell are you telling me that you told me what time was supper? You're only telling me once. I've only asked it once. And that's their belief. And that needs to be the way that we approach it and that we answer that, right? So this is just such a wonderful exercise. Here's middle stage memory loss. Old age, all the books are off the shelf. So a lot of things they're forgetting, a lot of things that are happening in their life at this point. Middle age, they forgot logic, fact, and reasoning, not emotions. Adulthood, a lot of things falling off the bookshelf. Look at teenage years. Let's say they met the love of their life. They met them, a next door neighbor, boy, and they got engaged at the age of 18, and then they got married and they had kids. And now you think the emotional side, right? Going on vacations and having children and babies and grandbabies and all the beautiful things that happen. But then look at old age top shelf on the hippocampus. At the age of 85, her husband died. And all of a sudden, as the progression of the disease, she looks at a caregiver and says, where's my husband? Where's my husband? So again, now let's go back to the hippocampus, the amygdala. The amygdala, only a few books are off the shelf, right? So that when we answer that person, and this gets to be really tough, right? And I'm going to give you an example. I was at a community and this gentleman who I had known for 1 year, he admitted into the community. He knew that his wife had died 11 years ago. Wakes up one morning, about a year after, wakes up, he looks at me. I was heading on the way to stand up, and he looks at me and he says, hey, chum, that was his nickname for me. Hey, chum, how are you? And I said, hey, good, how are you? He goes, do you know where my wife is? Now, again, 11 years ago, I mean, he knew that she had died just yesterday and for a whole year before that. So right away, I looked at him and I knew it was under his iceberg. I said, you know what? It's 8:15. I wonder if she's at school. She was a school teacher. And he goes, oh, okay, thanks. Now, what did I do with that information? I didn't just keep it to myself, right? Right away, I went to the nurse and I said, hey, we've got a change in mental status. So-and-so doesn't recall that his wife had passed. His wife had passed. So right away, as many of you know, what do you do the first time you have something like that happen? So chat bar blow up, please. And you guys yell it out. What do? You pull a urine, right? To see if there's anything going on with a UTI, anything going on with this person medically. First things first. Nothing was happening. It was negative. So we understood that it was the progression of the disease. But think about it now. Can you imagine? And this actually happened where we had people saying to him, your wife died, don't you remember? Right? They weren't mean or malicious. They just didn't understand the process. They didn't understand the next step. So it's important to continually educate teams on this, because you can only imagine emotionally what this person feels when you say she's dead. She died 11 years ago, right? Can you imagine how he feels? Because he can still feel angry. He can still feel sad. He can still feel. And so it's just so important to understand the process and the approach. Now here's end stage memory loss, late stage. This is where somebody in the hippocampus, logic, fact, and reasoning, a lot of the books fell off the shelf. But if you look at the amygdala, the feelings and the emotions, it's still there, right? They're still there. Yeah, a few books fell off, but the feelings are still there. So this is when maybe a frontline associate or a family member goes into the person's bedroom and just checks and makes sure that they're quiet and the feet are on the bed and the sheets or blankets are up, and they don't say anything and they walk away. The person can still feel lonely. They can still feel isolated. It's important for our frontline associates to know that individuals with memory loss at late stage don't sleep like you and I do. They'll go periods of sleep and wake. And so it's important to go in and check, and for them not to feel isolated. Because again, on that right side, you can still feel, they can still feel sad. They can still feel lonely. If you have a frontline associate that goes into that person's room, doesn't knock on the door, it's time for incontinent care, and they reach under those sheets and they go and they change that brief and change that chuck, this person can still feel scared. They can still feel frightened. They can still feel like someone is abusing them, right? And so it's so important to make sure that we're going in and we're connecting with that person first. So on the other note, if you've got somebody and you're going in to do care and you knock on the door and you say, "Hi, Kelly, it's me." And you walk in and you hold their hand, right? And maybe you sing a song that they used to sing before when they could, right? And you look at them and you say, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." They can still feel love. They can still feel connected. They can still feel like they belong. Game changer for anyone caring for somebody with memory loss. And it's just so important. So again, search engine, amygdala bookshelf, and I just feel like this is an awesome way to share with our frontline associates and even family members on approaches to care. So here's a non-pharmacological approach to care. This is a tote that I've created before. And again, it's person-centered. So if it's, there may be somebody who doesn't like the baby one, but I want to talk about baby because I think it's so important. Nurturing is a very important feature, and it's something that you'll see a lot of our residents or people with memory loss enjoy doing, whether it's the For Real Kitty from Hasbro or it's a baby. One thing I want to talk about with babies, make sure the eyes open, eyes closed. You don't need to spend $200 on a baby that looks real. All you need to do, and this one's from Walmart for $9.98. And basically the biggest thing is the eyes open, eyes closed. I had somebody with a history of SIDS baby, and this actually worked very well, but again, needed to have those eyes open, eyes closed to be able to work effectively with this person. So laminated postcards, right, that maybe have to do with a person and maybe their town, right, their history. Playing cards, and this is good for family members who may be taking a long trip in a car or traveling or even transitioning from home to a residential living, something that is connecting them to something they feel that they're used to, really important. Of course, with COVID, we want to make sure that things are washable, so the washable playing cards are great now. There's a product that I've made from a fishing reel. It's really great. It's only about 10 inches long, and it actually goes tick, 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 tick. I just shorten a rod, only put a little bit of a string, and it just is a nice way for people to reminisce about fishing. The baby doll and weighted animals or blankets are really great. Again, work with the physician on that. They're out there. A lot of people use them. I love the weighted animals, not childlike though, but they have some animals out there that you can actually put on a person's lap. I don't know about you, but I have a Maine Coon. And when that Maine Coon sits on my lap, it makes me feel great. It makes me feel good. I'm petting the cat. So weighted blankets and animals are good for a lot of people. They decrease anxiety, and that's another option you can do. Different materials and fabrics are other ways that you can kind of support them. So another thing about home and feeling home, I wrote a chapter, I think it's chapter 9 in my book, and I just felt it really being valuable because I've traveled this country. I think I'm 8 states shy of seeing all 50. And one of the things I often hear people say is, "I want to go home." I've even heard family members say, my dad lives at home and I care for him there, and he still says, "I want to go home." And so we talk about home isn't necessarily a place as it is a feeling. And so this is a quote that my son said. He was 16 at the time, and I had to rework the quote because I think he actually said, "Hey Ma, when you croak, I want this tablecloth because it reminds me of home, and we've had it forever and I want to remember." So as a 16-year-old, I had to clean that up a bit, but as a mother, I knew exactly what he meant. that it meant something and that they were good memories for him. And so really understanding what home is, knowing those things. So a little bit of homework for all of you out there is think about what you have at home. And they don't need to be huge, right? It might be the Afghan that somebody made you. It may be the special coffee cup that you use that you don't throw in the dishwasher, that you rinse it out and you turn it upside down and you get it ready for the next day. Those small things, the pillow that you use, do you take it with you on vacation? How would you feel if you moved into residential care and you didn't have the pillow that you always use, right? Or the type of pillow. That is so important. Introducing new caregivers, they really need to know, speak the person's name, their nickname, what's under their iceberg, what's their brass rings, what's the things that they've achieved that the person can talk to them about, what's under the habits, the road not taken. Maybe some of those road not takens might be triggers. So know that as well, have them know that. What will make them feel proud, right? Those peacock moments, proud, beautiful, and confident. There's my Dove soap. So if I go somewhere, when I travel in a hotel, I don't use it, but boy, when I'm home, I know I'm home because I can smell it. And the aroma of that and that smell is so important for me to feel connected. This is important for home-based caregivers. And I always talk about this, when we're assessing someone or we're supporting a transition, so with a case manager or not, whether it be nursing and the like for residential home or services. It's so important to make sure family members understand it is important to share your loved one's social history, right? And also to know the more information you share, the more emotionally connected, right, we are and that person is to us or to wherever they're going. And so it's so important that we're great at what we do, but we're not half as good without family members really sharing what's under a person's iceberg. So my question to you, and you can yell it out or throw it in the chat room, why do families sometimes not give us all the information? Why do sometimes people come into our communities with maybe behaviors and we weren't aware of? And so the answer sometimes is, and I do see a couple of people answering, thank you so much. Sometimes they feel, right, guilty or they feel embarrassed. Maybe they feel like if I tell you this behavior, you won't take my loved one. Or maybe, hey, it only happened once. I hope it never happens again. And so it's really important to say, listen, we're great at what we do. And this isn't our first rodeo. And I know most of you working in this industry the same, but isn't it important to know these things so that we can put in our own support systems for any behaviors that occur? So again, and I know sometimes as a task, we're kind of checking off, does your mother do this? Does she do that? Is there behaviors? It's sometimes important just to stop a minute and say, listen, we're great at what we do, but we're not half as good at it without you. The more you share about what's under your mom's iceberg, the good, the bad, the challenges that you've had in caring for her, the more successful she'll be. And I think that's the way that we approach it. And oftentimes when we do, we see more of the family members being more open to being able to share that information with us. It's not a pass-fail. It's about that stuff that we need to know. And so this is what I have in my book called, the four factors. So physical, environmental, psychosocial, and caregiver, and the behavior. One thing that sometimes you'll hear is somebody say, and it could be a family member or somebody maybe in the team that hasn't been maybe trained in this particular avenue, might use a judgment word. She's nasty. He's mean, right? Those are judgment words. And we want to try to back off that. So when you hear that, really try to uncover, what is that behavior? So is it this person's mean? What are they doing? Are they yelling? Are they hitting? If somebody says combative, what does that mean? Drill it down to find out what is combative. Are they kicking? Are they hitting? Are they spitting and yelling and whatever that is, drill it down. And then let's look at these 4 areas. So transition and intervention huddles. I know, better luck next year, but there's my team right there. And so let's talk about interventions. Real-time huddles are great. They're time sensitive. So anytime you have a behavior within your acute care setting, rehab, residential, adult day, wherever it is, even home, it's really important to try to get together with the team within 24 hours of that challenging behavior that happened. Invite key people, right? So again, if something happens in our residential living and it has to do with the housekeeper, then I want to invite that housekeeper to the huddle, right? because it's important to make sure we have those key frontline teams to be able to support this. They are the experts. The behavior, also maybe even using external huddles. So some of our communities will work independent and do their own huddles. Some of them may ask for a support. And that would be someone that would be like myself or of the regional team. And the benefit of that is being able to support, because we've supported other communities, right? I've often seen things that I did in Yuma, Arizona work in Massachusetts and vice versa. So having that advantage is always nice too. Always follow up, identify the timeline to regroup. So when you're connecting for a huddle, at the end of that conversation, say, okay, when's our next call? And very important. So you have some pitfalls, right? They don't feel that they have the time to host a huddle. They don't feel that they're not inviting the key players. They don't invite that housekeeper where that housekeeper is pivotal in that behavior intervention. They're afraid, maybe they don't want to have a huddle, or they're afraid that they have to get to the huddle and have all the answers. And we don't need all the answers. All we need is information, and we're going to ask a bunch of questions. Not understanding this, not about answers, it's about all the questions that the team creates to develop around these 4 factors: physical, environmental, caregiver, and psychosocial. Those are the questions. So if you are having a huddle, regardless of your agency, you have the chart or whatever the medical records are, the behavior log, if you have it, time specific, unless of course you're in a state where they want you to have behavior logs if they're on the antipsychotic. So medications, their weights and vitals, if you can get it, social history and preference forms. Again, that's really important because that's the non-pharmacological approach. And then the open mind, being open-minded to the medical field as well as the non-pharmacological field. Follow up and regroup. Give parties time. So again, we talked about this. How long? About 21 days. You're going to adjust, 35 days for somebody with memory loss. So it's a lot easier to call the doctor and get a script for a medication. And especially now with COVID and having staffing challenges, I get it. But it's so important. You think about this disease, it's a 6th leading cause of death. There's no cure, there's no treatment, there's no prevention, there's hope. And so 1 in 3 of us on this call will get this. And so my question to you is, do you want somebody to throw a pill at you, or do you want to have an approach? And so really take your time to find out what that approach is. Give that, communication is key. Support those frontline associates on knowing what to do and how to support that person, and give them that chance to do that non-pharmacological approach. Review for effectiveness, right? You're going to specify an amount of time and then regroup. So the reason why I created a map a while ago is because oftentimes when you have a behavior, people have a hard time focused on what's next, right? So a map really identifies where you are. It gives everybody, a route to follow. It also will give you some alternative routes if you need. It'll identify when you need that 10,000 foot vantage point. And it'll also give you some other options that may not be faster, but may be more effective. And so here's a couple of things that I look at. So identifying risk scope is so important. So again, we talked about behaviors aren't good or bad. They can be good or bad. They're not one in specific. So making sure that your frontline teams know what to do in the event of an emergency. All right, so again, this could be a family member, a husband and wife living together. If there's a catastrophic reaction and that husband becomes aggressive, it's really important to understand, have her have the tools she needs to identify the scope and then what to do in case of an emergency. It's all different. So if you're in the hospital setting, that's going to be different than residential care or adult day, as well as home care. So make sure that you all understand and your frontline understands that risk scope. And then document. Once that scope is identified, document the behavior. Host that huddle. So get those people together within 24 hours. Ask questions to create interventions. And hopefully if we have some time, I'm going to talk about that. Set the interventions in place and then give it time to create success. Educate the you're going to update the service plan, educating the team, and then updating the physician and family. If it's unsuccessful, you're really going to look at that behavior tool now, behavior log, look at the tracking, who's on, who's not, what time of day, all that stuff, and really kind of peel back that onion on those behavior logs. I like them to be like 1 to 2 weeks, Again, if the state, or if you do have a regulation that states you have to have them anyways, then pull what you got and use them. Family and physician notified, repeat the process if necessary, and then always update and communicate in the service plan or the care plan. So this is where, if you're home care, I want you to at least have some tools to give family members, right? So, and again, this also can be residential care. So if there is someone who's identifying in a home, let's say a home-like setting, and they are, they're causing behaviors that might be aggressive, make sure that that person, maybe it's the wife, has a place in their home that may be a safe haven for them, right? It could have a quick iceberg review. So let's say they have help coming in. And so they have an area where they might have the iceberg. So it might be a page, and I'll call it the smile page. It's the person's name, their nickname, what they like, what they don't like, what's triggers and all that stuff. So some things that you may be able to use, flashlight, water. Again, this is if there's a catastrophic reaction where somebody's very aggressive. Husband, wives, really important to make sure that wife has what she needs to keep herself safe. And track phone if they need it, auto dial. Support group, making sure that we really educate people, family members and the like, that they are teachers and students. Oftentimes I'll hear family members go, oh, I don't need that. And I've often said to family members, listen, you may not think you need it, but there may be a guy sitting right next to you that isn't where you are yet. And you can share with them your experience and help them through a process that they otherwise would have a difficult time. So understand that support groups are about being a teacher and a student. On wandering with an agenda, without an agenda, these are important things that family members need to know. 65% of individuals can wander. So we want to be mindful of that. Sharps, toxics, and ingestibles, so important to be looking at, especially on a family home setting, that things can resemble. I had a gentleman once, husband and wife, they went shopping. She goes and brings home the groceries with him. She runs downstairs and drops off the Tide, comes back upstairs, and there he is at the kitchen table with a beer. And this is why I say, if it looks like a beer and it seems like a beer, what is it? It's a beer. Well, it wasn't. It was Breck shampoo. Remember Breck shampoo? And when you put it in a glass, it looks just like it. And he had a very difficult time, didn't understand that it wasn't a beer. He actually even sipped it. And he did not process that it wasn't. So again, just making sure that they have these things at home to understand that things can resemble other things. A medication, again, Tide Pods look like candy. Just want to understand that you want to make sure that these things are secure. Outside of the home, decrease awareness of time and space, uneven pavement and weather. This here, I have a picture of a tracker. Some people might consider that intrusive. Other people consider it a lifesaver. So whatever it is, I always give them the resources to be able to, if you're using an iPhone or a certain phone, they have trackers right on the phone. If somebody's always using that, there's the Tile app and other things that you can use for that as well. So these are just some things about color. Color green is one of the last colors you lose the ability to see. So green is a nice color that pops out. Black can be conceived as scary. So I want to be mindful of that. I don't like putting black mats in front of doors. I would rather kind of figure out something else. But if I'm going to scare the resident, I don't think that's a right thing, or scare a person. So I don't typically use those as an intervention. I would just know that they're scary and try to use another intervention, like a wet paint sign or something else to deter that person other than a mat. Purple is one of the colors that go missing often. It's a hoarding color. So if you have somebody that likes to shop, putting baskets with purple items in it is a great way to have them kind of help them pick the things that they pick and choose. Red increases your appetite by 27%, which is a great thing, right? Not if you're wanting to lose weight, but it's also an aggravator. So just be mindful that large doses of these three colors, red, orange, and yellow, just can cause agitation. So just be mindful of that. You shouldn't be painting a big room red, but using in small doses is fine. Blue decreases appetite. So here's a study that I've used, and it looks like I have plenty of time, so great. So I want to read this study, and we're going to talk through the behavior huddle and those processes that I was talking about. So here's Arthur. He's a 79-year-old man who lives with his wife, Fran. She's having difficulty getting him in the shower. Not something that we are uncommon hearing, right? When she asks him to take a shower, he says, no, I already took one, right? Or he says, hey, I didn't do anything to get dirty. Because of this response, Fran gets angry and she's frustrated, and she shows it to him, right? The recent changes, she ends up trying to shame him into taking a shower, telling him that he stinks and that he didn't take one already and that he keeps forgetting. So again, think about the amygdala, what's going through Arthur's mind. As a result, he becomes agitated, digs his heels in even more, and now Fran comes to us with this behavior, and she's frustrated. Oops. So the first thing, breathe, right? So we're going to keep an open mind. Is this a behavior that we need to address? Yes, but we want to do it with an open mind. Getting him clean is the most important thing. Does it need to be a shower? It doesn't have to be. We can think out of the box, maybe do, a shower is the goal, but maybe we have alternative ways to wash him. So we're going to consider that a win. Teamwork. So again, after speaking with Fran, her resources are her son who lives with her, Arthur, Arthur's physician, the daughter who lives far away. Fran and her daughter, her children, decide to have a meeting. So they have this meeting and they look at these 4 factors again: physical, environmental, psychosocial, and caregiving. So 4 factors. If you think about physical, Arthur has arthritis. So this is the questions we're going to ask, right? And so let's talk about Arthur's physical condition. So Arthur has arthritis. He doesn't have full range of motion in his legs due to stiffness and pain. He has difficulty with depth perception, especially with similar colors. Right, so I bet you're all thinking about now the bathroom. The bathroom is cold until the shower is on. There's a small lip when entering the shower. The shower chair and the stall are both white. Fran becomes angry and frustrated. There are times when Arthur doesn't even recognize his wife. Arthur gets agitated with Fran and communicates with him when she communicates with him that way. There are times he feels his privacy is being invaded when he doesn't recognize her. So you can think about these. These are all the questions, right, that we're asking in a particular huddle. And we just based it on those 4, right, those 4 areas. So if you think about environmental and physical, getting the space ready, turning on the shower prior to him entering the bathroom, and getting him undressed is important. Pain. Talk to the doctor. We worked on arthritis medication just before he takes a shower to have him be able to get over that threshold easier. Visual changes and challenges, yes. Family also painted a contrasting strip on the lip of the shower to make it easier for him to get in. They put a bright blue towel, which is his favorite color, on that chair for him to really have a target. And now you can see the difference between the floor and now the chair. Caregivers. The family decided to have the son assist Arthur, and he was more comfortable and less agitated with his son, right? A guy being able to care for him. With Arthur's favorite soap and Irish Spring, his son came to the house to assist his dad with a shower. Psychosocial, the son volunteered to routinely give the shower. When his son gave him a shower, he began to sing a song. He remembers his dad, true story, remembers his dad singing When the Moon Hits Your Eye Like a Big Pizza Pie. And so that's how they started the shower. They made sure all the supplies were there that he liked, and then he became successful. And this, what did it do to Fran? Right, she was less stressed. She started getting the help that she needed too. And put a dignity back into their lives. So follow up and regroup. This is where the family talked about the interventions they had in place, what worked, what didn't, and what needed to be tweaked. So what are the brass rings? It's about feeling home, right? Giving peace of mind to both the resident or the individual and the family and the associates. Relief and fulfillment, contentment, forgiveness, right? We don't always get it right. And so it's really important. Communication is key. Collaboration is key, right? And appreciation for one another. So here's some references and, let me go back. is a survey link. I'm going to open it up. I know, Allie, you're still there. I do see there's 33. I know a lot of these were answers to my questions as well, but didn't know if there was any specific questions people had.
Great, thank you. So at this time, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat and we'll go through them. Just as a reminder to please complete the program evaluation. Once that is completed, you will receive a CEU or certificate of completion within 1 business day. You can either take a picture of the QR code on your screen and I will enter the link in the chat. I will also email it out after. So I will send that in right now.
Any questions at all? As always, it was my pleasure and honor to be here today on behalf of Northbridge. Thank you so much.
All right, we're getting some comments, but no questions right now. So we'll leave that open for just a few more minutes. And if there's no questions, we could end a little bit early, but we'll stay on to see if anyone has any questions. So I liked, excellent presentation. I liked the comparison of the bookshelf. What was the website given at the beginning? If you're referring to, I'll let Kelly answer the bookshelf. If you're referring to the bookshelf, if you're referring to the website for the presentation, that would be, I'll type it in. It's the Rhode Island Geriatric Education Center for the recording of this presentation, but Kelly can answer the question regarding the bookshelf website.
Yeah, so basically, if you just go on the search engine, I just actually put it right up on my phone now, and there's a couple of different sites for it, but it's called the amygdala. Just put amygdala bookshelf, and you'll see the model of the amygdala bookshelf, and it actually, you can actually print out. You know, I put my own twist on it, but it's all right there, and just a great resource to give out to your teams, and then talk about it, like talk about those scenarios.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's give it a couple more minutes. So if there's any questions, feel free to use the chat feature and we will answer those. Okay, so it doesn't seem like we have any questions right now. So why don't we end a little bit early, but thank you all. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Northbridge, for hosting this. And we will follow up with the recording of the presentation once it is available. And I will follow up with the program evaluation in an email, along with any resources that Kelly may want to share.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you all.